Hi, is this the new normal? Is this the way that we are going to communicate with one another for the weeks, months, and years to come? No, I don't think so. But it is how we are dealing with things right now during this, let's call it a crisis. It is a crisis. This pandemic, the coronavirus, COVID-19, changing the way that we're living our lives on a daily basis right now here in Ohio and all across the country and the world for that matter. Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis, and this is Whiskey Business, the podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. And normally we would be recording this in my home, sitting around with our guest, having some cocktails and talking about whatever the conversation may consist of. But tonight, because of us trying to honor the social distancing and, of course, the stay-at-home order, which is in place here in Ohio, we are doing this remotely. And we decided tonight to invite you all on Facebook Live to join us as well, because our very special guest tonight will be Associate Professor of Health Policy from the OU College of Medicine, Dan Skinner. Also, the host of Prognosis Ohio, which you can hear on WCBE radio. And his podcast, Prognosis Ohio, deals with everything that's going on health-wise in the state of Ohio. Tonight's conversation is going to be live here on Facebook, as we said, and we don't know what directions it's going to go in. You are more than welcome to fire up some questions to Dan Skinner as we continue through the night. I think this is kind of an important podcast this evening because this is our first full day of stay at home. We're curious as to how you're dealing with it. Maybe some of you have already gotten acclimated to it in the last week or so by self-quarantining and doing the right things. So maybe today wasn't that much different than any other day. And the big question that I have, like everybody has, is this going to be the new normal? I don't think so. But it is where we're at right now. And right now, each day, day to day, is what we have to do to deal with it. And we got to stay calm and we got to stay collected throughout the whole thing. So hopefully tonight we'll get some information. And as we do on Whiskey Business, we'll also probably have some laughs along the way as well, because God knows we need to laugh at times like this. So welcome to Whiskey Business. Let's bring in the crew, if you will. Hansberry, John Whitney. We can't do the podcast without Greg Hansberry right there on the audio side.
Let me do the business real quick before we bring everybody in. Of course, Whiskey Business is on Facebook. You're watching us on Facebook right now, hopefully. Share this little link below on your page, your homepage, and that way your time line is whatever the heck they call it now. To share, everybody can join in and ask Dan questions, ask us questions. Instagram, Twitter, follow Dino. Dino's on Twitter. You know, he's got like almost 2,000 followers. He's a big shot. I didn't realize.
I do.
Yeah. I didn't realize you were so prolific.
I did not know. No, I've been having some fun with Twitter lately, trying to make people chuckle. Yeah.
Well, it's a good time for that. Whiskey Business is on YouTube. Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. Also, just subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting app. You can find all the archives. If you're new to Whiskey Business, you're just finding this. We've been doing this for like 4 years or something now. There's a whole archive of episodes from A to Z, as we like to say. Also, I want to bring Johnny up to talk about, we've got a new website, whiskeybusinesspodcast.com. Say hi to
Whiskey Business Pod.
whiskeybusinesspod.com.
I screwed it up last time. Damn it.
You did it too.
I need to write it down. Whiskey
That's
Business
John Whitney, everybody.
Pod.
John Whitney is the genius behind all the YouTube stuff that you see and enjoy. You can't do it without him either.
So you can go onto our new website and you can find all information for about the podcast. All the new episodes are on there. There's also a new series of videos that we're doing called Whiskey Wisdoms, which we'll be putting up there once a week for the next 10 weeks. So
the first one's up and being enjoyed, and the new one comes out tomorrow, right, Johnny?
Correct. Yes.
Whiskey Wisdom number 2 tomorrow. So look for that on all your social media sites. It'll be out there on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter and everywhere we can put it, Facebook, so forth and so on. What are you doing this?
I'm not used to not shave. I mean, I don't like to shave, but when I go to the office, I have to shave
and now you
at
don't.
least once a week. But now should I grow a beard?
You guys
That's
make
my
me feel
question.
guilty. I trimmed down. You guys
You
are
did
talking
trim
about.
down. You did from when we did the little test the other night. You have trimmed down considerably.
Yeah, you made me feel really
your
paranoid.
beard. About all the germs collecting and so forth. For those of you who aren't familiar with whiskey business, one of the things that we have on each show is a guest bottle, and it's going to be hard to obviously share the guest bottle with everybody this way, but in keeping with tradition, I here at home will be consuming the guest bottle. And this pays a little homage to our friends in Pennsylvania. You think you got it rough here in Ohio. In Pennsylvania, they shut down all the liquor stores in Pennsylvania.
Man.
Yeah, and people lost their minds. So we're drinking here at home on the home base a little Wiggle Pennsylvania rye whiskey. So for anybody listening in Pennsylvania, I feel for you, and hopefully you stocked up and you'll be able to get through this in your stores, and everything else will be open before long. Also, if you haven't listened to this week's podcast, really good one with Tommy Gallo from Gallo's Kitchen, which is currently on wherever you get your favorite podcasts, obviously, and on YouTube as well. It's called Don't Call Me Chef. Tommy was great. We talked about a lot more than food on that particular podcast. And Gallo's Kitchen, like a lot of places in Ohio, is offering up carryout. Today is the Great American Carryout Day, where people are encouraging you to go to your carryout places and get food and support those people, because that's right now the only way some of those joints are making money. But Tommy Gallo's podcast is great, and he's open Monday through Saturday from 5 to 9, and Sundays from 5 to 8. And your other places, I don't know. You have to check them out, but your favorites are probably open and ready to serve you as best they can. All right.
Hey,
Can we bring on Dan yet?
We forgot to say something though. The new website was built by a friend of the show and guest John Osbeck. We want to give him a shout out and thank him for helping us with that.
Big time. Big props to John Osbeck for putting whiskeybusinesspod.com.
Correct. Down so I won't forget it.
All right. So for those of you who are joining us, let's get to our very special guest. We've had him on the show before. Actually, one of these days, Dan, I'm going to have you on when it's not so serious. We had you on when it was Men's Health Awareness Month, and we talked about prostate cancer and testicular cancer, and now we bring you back on to talk about the coronavirus. I hate to exploit your knowledge and your gift, but it seemed like a no-brainer to bring you back right now. Dan is Associate Professor of Health Policy at OU College of Medicine. Also has the show Prognosis Ohio on WCBE Radio, a podcaster himself, and he joins us today. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
I just think, I feel like I keep getting invited to funerals, but it's like, I also do bar mitzvahs. I also do birthday parties,
Yeah, that's yeah. I bet you're the go-to when they can't get a clown. But no, thank you, man, so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Where do you want to start? Where I mean, let's pretend that I'm just the average person and I see Dan Skinner, I find out what you know and what you do. What's usually the first question that people are tossing at you right now?
Well, look, I'm a political scientist by training. So like the questions I've been getting for, 20 years now are like, who's going to win? These predictive questions. What's going to happen? And, look, political scientists, like we know stuff, but we don't know who's going to win an election or like what's going to happen with this pandemic. There are a ton of unknowns, which is precisely why. I mean, there are some things we know, but there are so many unknowns that it's too dangerous to risk taking a chance with it. And that's one of the things that I think like kind of frames us being here in this crazy little online world, socially distant from you all, safe from you all. But, trying our best to just trust that what here in Ohio, Governor DeWine and Director Acton, our health department director, that what they're doing is taking this very seriously. They're taking it really, really seriously.
Speaking of which, I know that a lot of people balked when DeWine got so aggressive early on
Yeah.
in this situation, as opposed to some other states. I mean, he kind of took it by the horns and ran with it. Now, in hindsight, it seems like a genius move. Do you think his aggressiveness has helped the state of Ohio? Even though our numbers are increasing, they seem to be smaller than some other areas in other states. So do you think that helped by being as aggressive as he was right out of the gate?
I'm sure it will help. We don't know. We're still looking at this week that's coming up in front of us here. We're on Tuesday here, where the numbers are ballooning, and they're going to balloon. I mean, right now, and I don't mean to freak anybody out, but a friend called me the other day and said, "Hey, when's this going to be over?" Again, one of these calls that like health policy people get,
Right.
like, "Tell me when this is going to be over." So I should I cancel my honeymoon or whatever? Yes. And
Yes.
The
I mean,
bar mitzvah
you can
you're
answer.
scheduled for?
Short answer, yes.
they're still talking about a peak here in Ohio. Thereabouts May 1st. I mean, we are, and that's a peak, right?
That's a peak.
It's a peak.
Not an end date. That's a
No,
peak date.
that's a peak. So, this is a long haul. Did DeWine and Acton, will what they're doing help? Of course it will. But I also think they were just following the data. They didn't do, in some ways, they didn't do anything extraordinary. They did what was hard because there were so many detractors. I'll just remind you guys, I mean, if you think back here in Ohio, everybody was flipping out. What was it, like 2.5 weeks ago when they canceled the Arnold? 3?
Mhm.
Right.
Right. They were like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, the Arnold! This is like, there's no NBA, there's no NHL, there's no Major League Baseball, there's no." I mean, there are no stores.
But people were freaking out about the Arnold because while they were canceling the Arnold, there was an actual hockey game just steps away that was taking place.
Oh,
So
people are like hugging each other, and they're all,
it was a mixed
Shaking
message.
hands.
It was a mixed message at that particular point in time.
Yeah. So I definitely here in Ohio, we're lucky to have strong leadership right now who took this seriously, who are listening to scientists, who are listening to epidemiologists, who are looking at charts, and they're not just like, thinking about pixie dust and fairies. At the same time, what we really need, I mean, one of the things we've learned is this is a global thing. If we don't all get on board, and I mean all 50 states and all the territories in the United States and North America, then we still are making things worse. We need federal leadership right now, I think, more than anything, and we know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's an interesting question from Eric Osbeck. Do you think there are severe constitutional issues with delaying and canceling primaries? I don't know if I want to get to that right this second, but everything gets pushed back and so forth. And you being, like you said, in the somewhat political scientist world, do you think that's going to happen?
What, the primaries specifically?
Yeah, primaries, delaying, canceling primaries, the constitutional issues. Do you think our election is going to be delayed? I mean,
right now we're not looking at the kind of curve that would delay the general election. I think the more interesting thing is what this is all going to do to the election. The questions it's going to raise. Are we going to learn anything from this in terms of like leadership at the presidential level? Are we going to think about healthcare in new ways? I have a theory that if we were 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago when we were then where we are now, Bernie Sanders would probably be being looked at quite differently because the country's going to be in a place to go really big, I think, after this. The next president, if it's a Democrat, gets a chance to be FDR probably. I mean, because we need big solutions. We're looking at depression level unemployment levels. We are looking at catastrophic conditions.
Yeah, there's memes going around with Bernie. Free healthcare doesn't look so bad, does it?
No, but Ohio, we'll have our primary in June or something, probably.
I think June 1st is what it's scheduled as now.
Yeah, and the courts are kind of working their thing out there. Some people are saying, "Oh, well, it's done. You can't hold it now." Like, I'm pretty optimistic that we will have an election. The bigger question is, will there be bad feelings by, let's say, the side that loses, saying, we would have won if it wasn't for that, and you guys screwed it up.
Gotcha. Like you mentioned earlier about the, we need to do something on a federal level, a national level. Let's talk about the difference in states, how different states are handling this situation. Because nobody's on the same page. I saw that. I think I saw today that that Texas said they They weren't planning on any type of shelter in place type of situation.
Right.
Not
They're just
Texas.
They're just they're just shutting down abortion clinics. That's all they're doing in Texas.
and the Austin Record Convention.
Yeah,
that's right.
So how is that affecting things in your opinion?
Well, we're definitely getting different models of leadership right now. We've already talked about Governor DeWine here and Health Director Acton, who, Acton is becoming like a celebrity. There are people, fan clubs starting and, Reddit threads just talking about how awesome she is. I think that's pretty cool. I saw an article from one newspaper with some guy who thinks he might have dated her in high school. Amazing leadership there. And I'm a lefty, so giving lots of props to our Republican governor is not something I do in a knee-jerk way. He's genuinely doing a good job with this, although the abortion stuff that's happening here in Ohio is opportunistic. We've also gone after some of the clinics, and I want to see them focused right now more than anything. I want to see them focusing on this thing and not looking for those opportunities. Also, so New York is by every number. By the way, big shout out to my family and friends in New York. We probably have some folks. I know your daughter's out there in New York.
My daughter is freaking out in New York City because she was a bartender and a bar manager. And when they shut down, they cut off her economic supply, obviously. And she's sitting at home alone. And still, even though she's in New York, occasionally she gets misinformed. Let's talk about that, about what people don't know. I mean, she saw trucks and tanks roll in and she thought it was, the end of the world. Yeah. What are they going to do? And I was telling her that's there for your protection. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It's just they're getting ready. But let's talk about how some people just don't understand still, despite everything that's out there, what the hell's going on.
Well, I will say before we turn and get back to New York, which I think I want to mention, that here in Ohio, when Governor DeWine mentioned that the National Guard was going to be involved, I really thought it was a really important thing he did in his press conference. He reiterated several times they will not be armed. These are not people that we're not militarizing. Right. That's really important for people to know, because if I saw a tank rolling down my street, I would also be, I don't know about tanks, but when you see the kind of militarization of things, that can definitely freak people out. And that causes people to make runs on the grocery stores, on the banks. That has bad consequences of their own. But New York's doing a good job. Andrew Cuomo, with this anyway, is responding pretty aggressively. New York has in New York City, the population density, as Cuomo said today. That's one of the biggest issue. People are living next to each other in apartments, and I lived in apartments like that for quite a while. Ohio, we have a bit more density, less density. It turns out that suburban sprawl and the sort of lack of density here in Columbus, which drives me nuts most of the time. We need more density, and we need to build up in Columbus for climate change reasons. But right now with coronavirus, it seems to be benefiting us a little bit.
Do you think the involvement of the National Guard is more sort of having them stand ready? Because I know they're really experienced with setting up large field hospitals.
Yeah, there's some of that happening. There's also just the supermarket issue. What DeWine was specifically talking about was guardsmen, the guard working in grocery stores. And sort of helping with supply lines and logistics and things like that.
And making sure people only got one package of toilet paper at a time. Right?
One.
That's it.
That's not even necessary because there is no toilet paper.
Yeah, really.
Oh, man.
One square.
Yeah, but look, I'm definitely skeptical of any kind of military sort of moment like that. But it's important that if we're going to deploy resources like that, that governors really talk to people about what's going on and be straight with them. And I think DeWine has earned the trust of most people, at least with the COVID stuff, that they do trust that what he's saying is coming from an evidence-based place, unlike what the president's saying, which is coming from a completely different planet.
Mm-hmm. So back to that original question, what I said about the difference and how different states are handling things. Do you feel that there just needs to be a national blanket process of sorts to help, flatten the curve, as they say?
Absolutely.
We all need to get on board on the same plan and stick to it for a while.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely what we need. I mean, we are a completely intertwined state. Interstate commerce, the highway systems, travel, transit. There are people moving around this country a lot, not as many as there were, but this is an extremely infectious disease we're talking about here. So, Florida, for example, I mean, like Texas, appears to be doing very little. You had these pictures of these knucklehead spring breakers down there, like doing beer pong and Jello shots, and they're like listening to I don't know. I don't even know what
Lizzo.
I don't know what people listen to anymore.
Hey, you could do that in your home garage, by the way.
That's
Come
right.
on.
That's right.
Hey, I was recently in Florida. I went down to visit my mother and check on my mother and make sure she was fine. And my sister lives in Clearwater Beach, and she was beside herself with the fact that the beaches had remained open until days after I got back. Even I go, have they shut the beaches down? And she goes, no, midnight tonight. And that was like on Friday
Yeah.
of last week.
We had a
It was-
situation in Athens. You know that Athens has a reputation for a party town, being a party town
Right.
where Ohio University is. And the students were organizing, I don't know how many of them, but it got a lot of attention. They were organizing a kind of Corona Fest where they were going to defy these orders and go out drinking in the streets. And the mayor and the president of the university and some other people got together and basically said, if you do this, we will arrest you and you will never go to college ever again anywhere. Like, we will make sure of it. They were very strong with them. And I'm glad to see that.
are these people? Let's talk about the weakest link in this world that we're in right now. Who are the weakest links as we speak? I saw that there were, this is sometimes in this case right now what we're doing here, the internet and the remote podcasting. This is great. This is when technology is good. When it's bad is when I see these stupid challenges. There's one challenge out there right now where you're challenged to actually lick a toilet and record it. And then post it.
How did Hansberry do? Yeah, how did Hansberry do?
Nailed it.
I mean, and my daughter in New York City is telling me, even though she is completely out of work right now, she's telling me that there are secret underground, for lack of a better word, speakeasies, bars that are opening, and people are going to these bars and in New York City, and they're finding out, if you're part of that in crowd, so to speak, there are special bars that are being opened that nobody knows about. So are these the weakest links, and are these the things that will continue to make this thing grow and not help us flatten the curve? I mean, what else do you think is the weakest link?
Yeah, well, look, two things. I mean, when DeWine made his order, right, the stay-at-home order, most of us were already doing what he wanted us to do, aside from people who had to be out there. And by the way, shout out to them. People working in grocery stores, healthcare professionals,
absolutely.
People who have to work in prisons right now, people who are working in homeless shelters, looking over, like people all around our state have to be out there doing this work. And in a way, we are staying home so they can do their damn jobs. And what DeWine seemed to be saying was, and what Director Acton kind of said was, this isn't about you people like that are already staying at home. This is for the knuckleheads who are putting everybody else's health at risk. Right. And so, it was a clampdown on that I think was really important, where they got the message that we're not playing around, I will say, by the way, with leadership, there's a chart going around, which I'm sure you guys, anybody who's listening can find, showing just, Kentucky, elected a Democrat, Andy Beshear, in the last cycle. He's taking this very seriously. The governor of Tennessee is not. Look at this. Look at the curves that they're experiencing in their state, right? Tennessee is on a totally different curve than Kentucky is. New York's on a different curve than Ohio is for different reasons. They're responding aggressively, but Ohio and New York are very different states.
Well, I mean, they're on New York, they're on top of each other, for crying out loud.
The density of people is larger.
And I was talking to a friend of mine today. We were talking about how people were lining up to get tested for the coronavirus on a day when it was pouring down rain and sleeting in New York City, standing in line right next to each other. If you didn't have the coronavirus before you got the test, there was a good chance by the time you got there, maybe. by the time you got to your place in line, it just seems like, and I guess that's the frustration of it, the futility of this process on trying to flatten the curve. It seems so just so daunting.
And let me put it another way too. By the way, I have to just scold you, Dino, for a second. I just gave mad props out to Kentucky, and you of Whiskey Business didn't say a word about Kentucky.
I did not say it. Oh, you're right. Shame on me. So I had nothing to say about the actual business of whiskey while I'm drinking a rye
from Pittsburgh
or Pennsylvania. Yeah.
But I do just want to say one other thing more seriously, which is, different people are in very different states right now. So if you're and this is always the problem with healthcare, right? People who have strong immune systems, who aren't currently experiencing any kind of problems that they know of, tend to be flip about things. But, the thing we know about health is that, like, vaccination is not always about you or your kids. It's often about other people, right? It's about protecting other people and about community effect. And, older people who have suppressed immune systems, people who have respiratory issues of various sorts, right? We're doing this for them, even though we might feel like this is ridiculous and we want to, I'm home with with my family and a 5-year-old who needs to be entertained a good portion of the day. It's really hard and people are struggling with that, but man, that's nothing compared to ending up in a hospital. You hear about this Italian man in, I think in his 70s, a priest, I believe, who gave his ventilator to a 30-year-old or something, and he died, the next day. I mean, Italy, just listen to what's going on in Italy, imagine that, and then think about whether your life staying home for a few days is so hard.
Yeah, I saw 60 Minutes over the weekend. They were talking to some doctors, or was it Sunday morning? I forget. Anyway, but the doctor was saying, given the choice between two people, a younger person or an older person, I'm going to pick the younger person because,
right.
The older person has already lived their life, basically.
And I have to say, so it's not just that people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are more vulnerable to the disease. When the shit really goes down, hospitals are deprioritizing certain people based on their likelihood to, the benefit, the actual yield. I mean, that's what rationing healthcare is about in extreme situations like this. And so it's not that you couldn't get helped, or that you couldn't get well if you could be helped. It's that we have to make decisions about who gets helped and who doesn't. And
that's like a triage situation, right?
Yeah, and that's coming to the U.S. That's something we haven't thought about in a long time.
It looks like we lost Dino on the Facebook Live stream. We're going to try to get him back on. I know this is a loaded question, but there we go. Here, look, we got Dino back here.
Look how fast you just slip in. Like Dino's corpse is like not even cold yet,
and I took the top spot.
All right. What happened?
You know what I did? Yeah. You know what I did? I pushed a button.
Don't push any buttons.
Don't touch anything.
I took my education from John Whitney and I pushed a button.
Yeah, but Dino, we now know what happens if you die. Hansberry's
right. I should have just held back a little longer and waited to see what Hansberry had to say. Oh man. Yeah. But I did hear everything you were saying in that particular segment. So yeah,
that's where we're going to land right now. Well, I was going to ask about the testing. That's just a huge loaded thing right now. And that's what I was getting ready to ask, Dino. I mean, you got the NBA players who are doing it, which is a huge controversy. I know they're using private funds and stuff, but now they're saying you don't even need to get tested. You probably got it. Just stay home. Even for me as a guy who right now is healthy, but say I start having symptoms, where does one even go if they think they have it? And is testing even an option?
Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, there was a lot of people talking. I think there are fewer people talking about this now. They've been chastened a bit on this, but saying, like it's just affecting a few people or whatever. Well, that was because of testing. Like West Virginia, of all places, was walking around with a swagger, like we ain't got it. Last in the nation. We don't have any COVID cases. Be like, yeah, you tested 12 people. Like, of course, So, like, that's one of the big problems. I mean, we have just under 600 confirmed cases, I believe, right now in Ohio, right? And we've had under 10 deaths so far. But when you learn a little math about how growth works and what exponential growth looks like and what this curve looks like, then none of that matters, right? It's where you're going. That's the old Wayne Gretzky line, right? Don't go where the puck is, go where it's going.
Right.
Sorry to bring hockey
hockey.
into it. I'm sad though.
It's interesting because say, when can I get tested? How long has it taken so long to get a test? But we're living in a world where Harvey Weinstein got a test.
Right.
Right.
He's in Rikers and he gets a test. And
Or one of my
finds out
favorite
that he's
tweets.
coronavirus.
One of my favorite tweets I've seen so far was, how the hell did Rand Paul get a test? First of all, he was asymptomatic, and second of all, he's definitely one of the least essential people in the United States.
Oh.
I love how you're still getting a little bit of your political agenda into the cracks of this podcast.
Yeah, and Dino, once again, you blew a Kentucky reference.
So. I know I do. I blew another Kentucky reference. Let's just say I'm going to blow them off for this evening. I'm going to blow all the Kentucky references for this evening. But Rand was in the
gym.
He was at the gym and in the swimming pool. What was he thinking?
What was he thinking? He just took the test to go work out now. That sounds good to me.
And let us not dismiss the other important point. Rand is a doctor.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. That is correct.
Reportedly. But okay. So testing is everything. And obviously we weren't ready for this. And now that we're testing.
I'm gonna stop you right there for a second. Yeah. Could we have been more ready for this? As a country.
Sure. Well, there's a couple points that people point out, right? So first of all, there are these stories, and of course, this book is going to be written, and it will be pretty devastating, and hopefully change the way we do this stuff. But just before the Trump inauguration, a meeting was held with the Obama people in transition, saying, "Here's about they talked about pandemic, right? They talked about this being something you need to keep on your radar screen, something that's going to be important. Here's the pandemic task force office that we have." Trump shut it down, right? So he got rid of that the whole office that deals with pandemics. And this is a very like Donald Trump thing to do, be like, pandemic, like what is that? Like, so just and move on. Like so he went to the tax cuts, he went to all that stuff, and here we are. So for sure, that's the long view. The shorter view is that we started talking about this at least in December, right? And certainly by January, this was like, okay, this is happening. If Trump was surrounded by, I don't expect Trump or any president to be super smart. I expect them to surround themselves with smart people.
You don't? Well, you don't expect them to be smart?
I mean, I hope, but like the president needs to make good choices about who they surround themselves with and listen to experts. Right.
I agree.
Yeah. And he was clearly surrounded by people who were not thinking about this stuff, who deprioritized science, who didn't understand what a curve looks like, and the word epidemiology. He's tweeting about kafeve, and he should have been tweeting about COVID.
And if they have a dissenting opinion, they're going to keep their mouth shut anyway. So what's the point, right?
Right. So clearly he had, there's that, but then there's also the longer view, and I don't want to make this just about Trump, which is our nation does a pretty bad job with public health in general. Every state is different. Every county is different. We, fund public health at a much lower level than just about every industrialized country in the world. So like, of course we got caught with our pants down, but different states reacted differently, and people noticed what was happening and responded more aggressively than others.
Mm-hmm. When we get to a point where this has flattened and we get past it, and I do honestly believe that at some point we will, they talk about a vaccine for this not even being ready for at least another year. So when this particular flu season, which we had, and this was obviously something far more aggressive than the flu. I mean, is this? Do you feel that this might be something we're going to have to deal with every year? I mean, are we going to be? Is this going to be, or how things are going to be? Like, come around end of the year when the flu season starts, we got to worry about Corona or some other strain of it wreaking havoc on our country again on a yearly basis. That's a question a lot of people wonder. If is this how it's going to be for a certain amount of time every year?
Well, a lot of it depends what we do right now. So, eradicating a disease, and I'm not a disease eradication specialist. I'm not an infectious disease specialist. I'm a health policy person. But from what I gather, and a lot of it matters. It depends on what we do now. But it's quite possible that this could be something that by the fall we start to see some more cases again. I mean, hopefully we're getting smart about how we respond to these kinds of moments, and we're learning some lessons there. But if we do this well, and I do think that I am optimistic, I have to say that Trump is just going to get beaten into a national response to this. He thinks we're going to be well, not me, I don't go to church, but he thinks that people are going to be in church on Easter.
On Easter, he thinks people are going to be back to work.
Right. All of a sudden he's a big Easter fan now. He's talking about how much it means to him and all this kind of stuff. But what he's really talking about is the economy and how he wants the economic numbers to be, start to work their way back up before the election. But this is going to be a long run, but I think we can't rush this. I mean, what he's talking about and when there were states, or today, Liberty University, Jerry Falwell Jr.'s place, right? Huge embarrassment for me. They have an osteopathic medical school and they're forcing everybody to come back to work. It's not an embarrassment because they have the school. It's an embarrassment because physicians should be screaming from the hills right now saying, hell no, we're not coming back. This is dangerous. You're not listening to what's going on out there. If we do the kind of stuff that Trump is talking about with his Easter Sunday, whatever, and Liberty University is talking about with bringing people back way, way before any of the experts, then we're gonna sentence ourselves to months and months and months of this, and many more deaths. Many more deaths.
A question about the optics of that, like whether he's right or wrong. Would you rather have, and whether you like Trump or not, would you rather have a president who's like, we could wrap this up by Easter, or a president who's like, we are fucked, we're done for, best Labor Day.
I would like something in the middle that was realistic and actually, honest and on top of things. I don't want some idealist saying, by Easter we're fine, but I also don't want anybody going like, you know what, see ya. Wrap it up.
That's where the politicking comes in. You got to be a good politician about this.
Well, that's not being a good politician to say we're going to wrap it up by something that's taken months and months to accumulate and spread. You're going to tell me we're going to wrap it up by Easter? Come on.
That's what I'm saying. You got to be able to speak, be a public speaker, and soothe the masses with delivering information.
Here's how I think about it. The first crisis we have right now, the only crisis we need to address right now, is a public health crisis. This is really hard for people in economic terms. This is really hard for small business owners who are being destroyed. This is hard for service people. This is hard for people in all sorts of industries that are going to be laid off and furloughed and things like that. That is really hard. But a few million deaths is way, way harder in my view. So separating the public health piece from the economic piece, and even bracketing even further, like the annoyance that we have to stay home for a little bit, where like Dino has like a war chest of bourbon to get him through. Like, you're going to be fine, right? I'm going to be fine. We're doing okay. But so it's not a matter of being doom and gloom or overdoing your rhetoric. It's a matter of being smart. And smart people know what we need to do. We have models, right? So you have people talk about South Korea versus Italy. Why are they on such different curves, right? I talked about Ohio, Kentucky versus Tennessee. Why are they on different curves? Well, the responses matter. So it's about, and that's what I like about what DeWine's doing. He's not sugarcoating things. He's telling us straight, this is going to suck. My kid learned the word sucks during this pandemic. That's this big vocabulary get. Right. And he's not wrong. This sucks.
No, he's not wrong. He's using the word effectively.
Yeah. And I'm not even stopping him. I'm like, I'm not gonna draw lines there right now. Like, we all have our emotions.
But I like the fact also that, you say he doesn't sugarcoat it, but he has tried to, by saying instead of shelter in place, he goes with stay at home, which, to the ear, sounds much better.
It's softer language, right? You're right.
Shelter in place sounds kind
Yeah.
of serious. Stay at home.
Yeah.
It sounds like all right.
It's
Okay.
it's like close to Netflix and chill. Like my
very
like
close. Stay at home, right?
my cat says to me, "Shit, I didn't even know I'd been sheltering in place all this time." You know.
No doubt.
Stay at home sounds kind of all right. I got some Sudoku puzzles and some.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah. So let's do it.
I mean, it's important
But-
to laugh about it, but like, so people are really suffering, and they're gonna suffer. But we can't afford not to. So I don't really mind the straight talk that people are giving us about these curves and all that. And the crazy part is, if we do a good job with this, they're never going to get credit for it, right? They're going to be people all over Ohio are going to be like, "Oh, that fucking DeWine, like he went way overboard, destroyed our economy, and look at our curve, it was fine." It's like, why do you think the curve was fine?
Why? Yeah. People don't put all the pieces together when they come to a final conclusion about something. They don't look at everything that went into the puzzle to make the puzzle complete.
But you all know this. I mean, you're all living in this world. Competent people don't get credit for what they do, right?
No, they don't. Like I said, puzzle. You need to put a lot of fucking blue sky pieces together in order to get a complete puzzle. And in what you're saying, a lot of people are going to ignore a lot of the blue sky in the final outcome of all these things.
I like that analogy.
Yeah,
blue sky puzzle. Whatever. One thing. Public health. One thing you were saying, I wanted to like. The one thing that I hope comes from all this, aside from getting past it, and if we would have been this aggressive in the last couple of years, this aggressive about hygiene, about washing our hands, washing our hands so aggressively, and being more aware of what we're spreading with just these hands. It wouldn't it be interesting? Do you think, as a public, a professor of health policy, do you think people over the last 2 to 5 years would have been washing their hands on a regular basis? That flu in general, let alone the coronavirus, rates would have just dropped down considerably. Do you think we'll continue to learn this lesson? Do you think, hygienically speaking, it will stick, and people will continue to do this based out of fear or just being smart?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, Dino, next time I see you, I'm giving you a big old hug. So I probably haven't learned much from this. I mean, I always was a hand washer, right? Like people want to engage. I mean, the whole question of like shaking hands and the way, like, that's one of the theories, by the way. So people say, well, why is Japan and South Korea done pretty well? Well, a couple reasons. One is that they've always, I mean, it's an aging society. It's a much older society there. So they had really good nursing home sort of protocols and like health protocols in place. The other thing that South Korea and Japan do pretty well is, if you're sick, your employers have been saying, stay home. They've been saying that for 2 decades now. So like here we're like, no, you're coming in until like the state says no.
I have to come in. I'm coming in sick. I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
But they also learned from the SARS experience to focus on hygiene a little bit more. That's been part of the culture. So that's going to be part of it. But I don't think that that's going to be the solution to this. I hope that, like, it'd be nice if we could all learn that lesson.
I don't so much a solution. I'm just saying, if people continue to do this and wash their hands in the months and year to come, that alone would have to help once we get past all this, to maintain that extra vigilant level of hygiene has to help on some level.
But we also need to think about things like, do we have enough medical equipment in our country to help people and to mitigate the spread of things when something breaks out? Because I mean, if you look at the Italy stuff, one of the most heartbreaking parts about it, and there's a lot of heartbreaking stuff going on in Italy. It's amazing. Is the sheer number of physicians who are taking care of their patients are now their colleagues. Physicians who have COVID who are dying, nurses, right? They're taking care of each other. The system is kind of collapsed on itself, and they don't have enough protective equipment, right, to deal with that. So, there are a number of lessons we got to get out of this. I don't know. We're 5 men sitting here, 4 men sitting here having this conversation. You've all seen people walk out of
It's 5. I make 2.
Sure. But you've all seen people walk out of bathrooms and not wash their hands. I see it all the time.
It used to make me crazy. It made me crazy before any of this happened. Like, oh my God, that guy didn't wash his hands.
Yeah. And I would venture to guess that, like, I don't know, 35% of men, can't speak for women because we have segregated bathrooms, but like 35% of men don't really wash their hands when leaving. I know that if you don't know this, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but like we live in a disgusting world, so that's got to be part of it.
I'll tell you, I've been in restrooms, and God, I don't want to call them out by name, but I've had friends I've known friends, like I said, aren't you going to wash your hands? And quote, my hands were clean before I touched it. Like, really? My hands are clean before I touched my dick. So why do I got to wash them after?
My wife touches it. Oh, what's wrong with that?
But Dino, I just want to mention one thing. So on my podcast, I just interviewed recently a pediatric psychologist talking about how to talk to kids about this stuff.
Yeah,
one of my concerns. One of my concerns is that, like, we don't want to become compulsive about this stuff, right? I'm obsessive about this stuff. We like, that's not going to be the lesson. We also don't want to be fearful of each other. I'm walking down the street here. I live in Grandview, and like people are walking to the other side. Like, I made a joke today on Twitter that, like, not only are people adhering 6 feet away, but a lot of people seem to think that social distancing means like not making eye contact now. Like,
right.
There's a whole lot of stuff. Like, I don't even know if I know how to drive a car anymore. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that, like, it's gonna feel weird to, like, get back to life. And I think we need to get back to life in a full way. We just need to learn something from this.
You mentioned kids, and Hansberry, we kind of broached this when we were doing the test over here on Facebook Live the other night. You got kids. Dan, you've got children? Yes?
I got one 5-year-old.
You got a 5-year-old. My daughter, grown. Whitney, your boy, grown, but
almost 22.
Yeah. In respects to our kids, I mean, should they have questions? And even if they don't have questions, they've got to be somewhat quizzical as to what's going on and why mommy and daddy are working from home now, and why, life as they know it. Why can't I go? If it's a daycare center, why aren't I going to school? What's going on? So I don't know if you have any insight as to how we should approach this with our children on how to explain it. But if you do, by all means, impart that.
Yeah. So one of the things I'll mention, and I did have that episode where I talked with Dr. Dempster, Nationwide Children's, and there's a lot of resources out there right now about this. I mean, this is an opportunity. I don't mean to sound so, like, opportunistic, but this is an opportunity for us to be straight with kids about the world a little bit. I mean, Trump is already kind of instilled.
But how straight?
Well, pretty straight. I mean, like, to the extent that anybody, I mean, I don't know, the four of us, do we really understand what viruses are? I'm a health policy professor. I'm not a clinician. I haven't studied the science of viruses. I think I know a little bit about what a virus is, as opposed to, like, let's say, a bacterial infection or something like that. But I don't really know. Like, just like I don't really know what a pancreas does. I kind of, sort of.
Is that the one we need or not need? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. That'd be a great whiskey business episode where you have your pancreas removed. No, but
what's the pancreas?
I think it's the way you talk about it that's most important. There's this virus out there. There's this illness. We're staying at home because for these reasons. I mean, just they're sad because they don't see their friends. They're sad. Like, we had a thing in Grandview here where there was a parade of cars going by the elementary school, and the teachers were standing outside, and the kids were yelling outside, "We love you, we miss you," from their cars.
Oh, yeah, I saw that on the news. Yeah,
cool. It was really beautiful. Except for, like, some totally asshole-ish neighbor who called the cops and said they're honking, and I'm trying to do a video conference. It's like, dude. So
there's always one.
But there's you say be honest as you can, but there I guess you people out there as parents know your children and know
it depends on your kid. How old they are and your relationship with your kid.
I mean, I can totally envision being a small child and and my mother or father saying to me, "Well, there's a horrible virus going out there, and it may kill us all. Good night, sleep well," and calling it a night. And I go, "What?" And I'd be up all night, just petrified.
Wondering what the hell was up. Yeah.
I want to remind people that those of us who are joining us here on Facebook Live, if you do have questions for Dan, by all means, fire them out there. Mike Abernathy is giving us a thumbs up. Good stuff. That's Dr. Mike Abernathy, who was on our podcast not too long ago. Great. So if he's giving us a thumbs up, we must be saying some decently right things before it's all said and done.
Validation. I got the virus thing right, but the pancreas will bracket for another day.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question from Tammy. Right there.
I
heard you. Go ahead, Dano.
Go ahead. Take it, guys. Take it.
I've heard that once you've had this, it doesn't matter. You can catch it again.
Well, I don't know that we know that. I mean, like, keep in mind the most important part of, like, so, okay. And here again, caveat, I'm not a clinician and I'm not a virologist, but I do know that lots of people have been saying that coronaviruses are very common. It's a family of viruses. COVID-19 is a very specific kind of coronavirus, and it's novel. So that's the part where people are trying to play catch up, trying to figure out what this is, trying to figure out
novel for just a second.
New. I mean, we don't know. We
don't understand.
We
it's
just,
new,
I mean,
right?
It's what you think it is. Yeah. It just means we haven't experienced this before. So, like, President Trump was like saying, "Oh, we'll have a vaccine in a couple months," and Dr. Fauci, who's like been a real hero in all this, is saying, "Oh, no, we're talking like a year to a year and a half." So, like, let's not put our hopes on our hopes on a vaccine.
Poor Dr. Fauci is going to disappear soon. You know that, right?
Well, we'll see. I think
he's going to disappear soon. he's shaking his head and covering his mouth when Trump speaks. He's not going to be around.
I mean, so clearly, there's a part of these kinds of things where some exposure could have long-term benefits because, just like vaccines, that's how vaccines work, right? Is that your body has essentially built up antibodies to it, and that's what keeps you safe. We don't know everything about this, though. So I think we're still in the period where, like, to say things like that, and this is like what particularly galls me about these Trump press conferences, is they're just like saying stuff, and like we don't know the answers to a lot of these things. He's saying, "Oh, maybe we have this this drug that you can get over the counter." The next thing you know, somebody drinks it from their like fish supplies and dies in Texas.
I know, right?
It's sad, but it's true.
So we don't know, and I don't think we should think in those terms now, and we should read when people know things.
What?
Yeah.
Do what? Say research? What's that word?
No.
What was that word? Dan?
Drink.
Read.
I don't know.
Read. Interesting. Yes. We will read. We will read, and we will learn. Oh man.
Multiple sources.
To say once you get it, you can't get it again. I mean, how many of us have had the flu? Just the flu in general. You got a shot of getting the flu every year, whether you get a flu shot or not, depending on what the strain is. So if there's a different strain of this virus next year, then you might get it. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Here's a legit question from Danielle that just popped up. As a medical student who has been pulled off of rotations, what are things that I can do to help out the community or advocate for other healthcare workers and patients while still obeying our stay-at-home restrictions?
First of all, you're not going to pull one over on me here. Danielle's one of our best students, one of my favorite students.
Yeah, she's buying for extra credit.
This is an inside job. This is an inside job.
And I want to know why she's been pulled off of rotations.
Well, look, so
she do home care.
This is a hard question because there's a tradition during pandemics of medical students being pulled in, and this may happen. Some of our medical students at OSU in particular are being told, if things get really bad, not to like say medicals, like things got so bad, we asked medical students to come in, but like medical students are not doctors, right? So when we get to the point where we're saying, hey, a third or a fourth year medical student, we need your help to come in to do things, that we've hit a point where our capacity has really, really run out. That hasn't happened here yet. We haven't yet gotten to a point where where like that's happening. But the immediate thing that we had to experience was that our students who train in the 3rd and 4th years in hospitals, we don't need students hanging around hospitals right now. They're dangerous places. Our physicians in hospitals and PAs and nurses and all the other health professionals, they are exposed to this. They lack the proper equipment to do this. So that's kind of the context of why they're being pulled out. What they can do is a different question. Right now, under DeWine's stay-at-home orders, I would say that there's a legal question, which is I don't actually know what you can do, what's allowable under that. But certainly there's any number of organizations out there that you can reach out to that need help. For example, a stay-at-home order raises a really tricky question. Some people don't have homes. Homeless people don't have homes. Where are they staying right now? Well, there are people around the state who are trying to find places in dorms and things like that where homeless youth can be sheltered. We need people who are willing to look after them. Like, so we're trying to deal with very specific questions like that at this time.
Gotcha.
Donating blood, I know, is a very common thing that everybody can do, whether you're a med student or not. I saw that on the Today Show, so it must be legit.
Sure, everybody can donate blood, and yeah, but even like doing work to help out any kind of organization, like from a logistics perspective, not necessarily from a medical perspective, though.
True.
So, Hansberry, how are we on time?
We're about there. We're just over an hour.
Over an hour right now. As we get close to wrapping it up for the podcast, I should say for the podcast that for those who are listening, we'll do that a little bit. We'll wrap it up for the podcast that people will hear later, but we'll stay on Facebook Live for a while longer if you continue to have questions and so forth. But as we get close to wrapping it up for the podcast, not so much for Facebook Live, moving forward, Dan Skinner, say starting tomorrow and moving forward, what do you think we need to do? We're staying at home. We're doing that. We're trying to enforce, social distancing to us as much as we can. What do we need to do? And more importantly, what shouldn't we do?
Yeah. Well, one thing we shouldn't do is to not take this seriously. And I know that sounds very basic, but there's going to be a tendency as we get locked down a little bit here. Keep in mind, one thing that's novel about this 19th mutation of COVID, as one of your the people who wrote in reminded us, it's a mutation. It's the 19th version of that, right?
Thanks, Chip.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. Is that it will feel like, okay, we got this, right? One of the weird things about this novel virus is that there's like a 2-week asymptomatic window in many cases.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There are people with this right now who will not know for 2 weeks. They've been exposed in some way. And we don't know. And that's different. Most things don't happen like that. So there's a period where that's why we're quarantining for 2 weeks standardly, to just see what's going on. So not to let your guard down. That's the most important thing. John Whitney's holding up a thermometer.
A thermometer.
Right.
I take it at least once a day. I'm self-monitoring. You never know.
Are you taking it in the afternoon? Because that's the best time to take it, not in the morning. In the afternoon.
I do it when I wake up. I do it probably toward 2:00 after lunch.
The afternoon's probably the best time to take it.
So that's one thing not to do. The other thing I would say, I mean, I know this sounds slightly controversial because Gwyneth Paltrow and these people are like, hey, you should write a novel while you're home. It's like, fuck you. Like,
that's on you. I'm gonna do it.
That to you, Dino.
Yeah. That's not the point, right?
No. But I get what she's saying. Use the time at home to do things you've never done before, or things you always wanted to do if you're going to be stuck at home. Okay.
But as a public health person, I mean, the things that I want to do is I first of all, I want to learn from these things. I think that people are going to die and their deaths, the sacrifice of all these people who are losing their work and everything. We have an obligation to use this time to at least change our way we think about these things. Like
Mhm.
this whole idea that we're going to come out on the other side and, oh, we're going to return to business as normal. I don't want to return to business as normal. I want to get better. So like, I think that we have an opportunity to figure out what that is. Reading history is an important part for me.
Yeah, it's kind of what I meant by the whole washing of hands thing. I want to be better. I want to continue to. I want to learn something from this and have it carry on. So yes, get better.
I think this technology thing. I mean, we've had the capability to do this for years.
Yeah.
But I've talked to my friends more times in the past 4 days than I have in 6 months, only because it's part of this. Pop culture trend, lack of a better term. People are doing it. Everybody's doing it. Let's hop on the FaceTime. Let's hop on the Zoom and chat.
It's
been there the whole time.
The FaceTime. Look, I think that's absolutely right. I've reconnected with people too. Friends in New York who are losing their jobs. People in New York who, friends. I mean, I lived in New York for most of my life, and it is going to get really, really bad. There are going to be hospitals in my hometown, probably they're going to be filled pretty soon, So like to take that seriously, and I think that there is a moment of kind of humanity here to remember what this is about, that actually we care about a lot of people that we haven't talked to in a lot of time, but also like that we haven't funded things properly, that our politics is not a game, as I mentioned with Kentucky and Tennessee, but also we can point to the president. Elections really matter. Like competent leadership really matters. Am I going to vote for Mike DeWine in the next election? Probably not. But like, I also am supporting him and helping him to the best extent that I can by saying, listen to this guy, and beating back all the nonsense that we get on social media.
I would tend to agree. I mean, DeWine wasn't necessarily my choice when it came time to elect a new governor, but I applaud all of his efforts and everything he's done thus far for the state of Ohio. I applaud his aggressiveness in respects to this situation that we're in. So, while he may not have been my choice, the position that he's in now and how he's acting and what he's doing, I have to say, well done, sir. Well done. And as we move on, because here's the thing, as we move on, and you said it before, people forget.
Yeah.
People forget. They might not remember this moment in time. And when we get down to the next election and what might be, they'll what have you done for me lately? And what has been done lately is unfortunately going to resonate louder than anything. People forget. People forget.
Yep.
I don't know how much they're going to forget as we go through this. I think this is going to stick in our craw once we get past it, as well it should, because there's certain things that need to stick in our craw in regards to this moving forward, things we need to remember, things we need to continue to do. But I don't know. The one thing I do know, and we'll get close to wrapping up with this, and I've said this before, I've said on social media, is that ignorance and fear spreads faster than any virus out there.
Yeah.
We need to be smart. We need to be calm. We need to be level-headed, and we need to move forward with knowledge and a surety that we're going to get through this. I don't know if anybody in these four squares agrees or disagrees with that, but that's how I feel.
Well, I just want to say, so we're going to get through this line. A lot of people are going to die. They're not going to get through this. No, I know
that.
I know you know that. And I'm just reminding us, because we have these like ways of coping at these moments of saying, oh, we're going to be okay. No, we're not okay. A lot of people are going to die. And I think for me, in talking with friends and family, to get people to the point where they took it seriously on that level of, imagine yourself in that hospital without a respirator or a ventilator. And like get in that mind frame. This is the kind of situation we're dealing with right now. It was very important to be able to move people to that kind of level of thinking about this thing. But what we need to do now is we need to realize that the way we set up our society has a lot to do with this. We need to fund public health correctly. We need to shut down the nonsense on social media. We need a president who believes in science. And we need medical students who believe in public health. And we need undergraduate students who read Shakespeare because they understand what it means to care about another human being. Those things all are important, and we're seeing the consequences right now.
I totally agree with that. And yeah, I mean, that's why do you think I went to Florida? My mother's going to be 84 in July. I went down to make sure that she was dotting the I's and crossing the T's, so she wouldn't be one of those people that dies from this, catches it and dies. So yeah, you make excellent points. Our guest has been Dan Skinner, Associate Professor of Health Policy at Ohio University College of Medicine. You can also listen to him on a regular basis with Prognosis Ohio on WCBE. Am I missing anything, Dan, as far as that information goes? Give me anything else that people need to know how to get to you.
I think I'm on Twitter at Daniel R. Skinner at Twitter.
Okay. Danielle, get extra credit. Did you give extra credit for your students to listen to this?
The students who listen to this kind of stuff don't need extra credit. They're already there.
Yeah.
That's a cop out. Let me give a couple business here.
Yeah,
if you're just finding us now here on Facebook Live, welcome to Whiskey Business. Subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting app. We've got an archive of 4 years worth of nonsense. It's a lot of fun to sift through. But yeah,
it's not all nonsense.
90% nonsense.
90% nonsense. 10% actually, sometimes very thoughtful and thought-provoking.
Yeah. Well, share this link, this video on your timeline if you're watching this on Facebook. We've got an Instagram account, Twitter, YouTube, Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis, where you can watch most of our podcasts on YouTube. And we have a new website, and I put it on the scroller here so that we wouldn't forget it.
So you wouldn't forget.
Businesspod.com, where you can find everything. But subscribe and share with your friends.
And tomorrow, a new Whiskey Wisdom comes out. It'll be fun and maybe put a smile on your face. We've gotten a lot of interesting comments. I'm going to wrap it up, but everybody stay where they're at, because we're going to continue Facebook Live for a little bit longer, because I have some other questions as well. But as far as the podcast goes, we're going to wrap it up. I got a funny feeling in the weeks to come, this might be the way we're doing things as far as Whiskey Business. If that's the case, I'm thankful for the technology. And so, my friends, thank you again to Dan Skinner. Thank you, John Whitney. Thank you, Greg Hansberry. And our guest bottle to the good people in Pennsylvania.
How was it?
Who have closed liquor stores. This is the Wiggle, Pennsylvania.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Now that you got a little wiggle in you, feeling pretty good?
I got a little wiggle in me. I'm going to pour a little more wiggle as we go on. That was the guest bottle tonight, as we stay true to that. So thank you guys for technically putting us all together. And Dan, I can't thank you enough. I would love to have you on Whiskey Business just for shits and giggles sometimes. Can we do that down the line?
Can we talk about cats?
My cat's been scratching at the door for the last half hour.
Is your cat named Shit or Giggles?
Shits or Giggles. Give me your shits. Give me a giggle.
Anyway, thank you
fuck
guys.
With me, don't fuck with my cat.
Until the next bottle, see ya.